She was a queen by birth, a prisoner by politics, and in a world of betrayal, her crown could not save her. This is the story of Mary, Queen of Scots. Born in 1542, Mary Stuart became Queen of Scotland at just 6 days old. Raised in France, married to the Dauphin, she returned to Scotland as a young queen, beautiful, intelligent, and ambitious. But her reign was constantly threatened by rivals and religious conflict. Mary's life was marked by political intrigue. Her claim to the English throne made her a threat to Queen Elizabeth I. She faced rebellions, betrayals, and plots at every turn. Eventually, she was imprisoned in England for 19 years. Mary was accused of conspiring to assassinate Elizabeth I. Her trial was highly political, a mix of espionage, letters, and forged evidence. Convicted of treason, Mary's fate was sealed by the politics of power, not by her actions alone. On February 8, 1587, Mary was led to the execution scaffold at Fotheringhay Castle. She wore a simple red gown, knelt calmly, and prayed. The executioner stepped forward. The sword fell. Her life ended, but her story would echo for centuries. A queen betrayed, a prisoner of politics. Mary, Queen of Scots, remains a symbol of courage, tragedy, and the deadly cost of ambition. She was just 16 years old, crowned Queen of England for 9 days, and in a world ruled by power and blood, youth was no shield. This is the story of Lady Jane Grey. Born into nobility in 1537, Jane was intelligent, educated, and deeply religious. She was chosen by King Edward VI as his successor, bypassing his half-sisters Mary and Elizabeth. But ambition and politics are deadly games. Jane was married to Guildford Dudley, son of powerful nobles. When Edward died, she was proclaimed queen, but Mary Tudor quickly raised support. The kingdom turned against Jane almost immediately. At 16, she became a pawn in a deadly political chess game. Jane was imprisoned in the Tower of London. She faced charges of treason not for her own actions, but for the ambitions of others. No real trial, no chance to defend herself. Just judgment handed down by those in power. On February 12, 1554, she walked to the scaffold with courage for beyond her years. She wore simple clothing, her hands were bound, and before the waiting crowd, she knelt, prayed, and accepted her fate. The sword fell swiftly, ending the life of England's 9 days queen. She was 16, a young girl trapped by ambition, politics, and betrayal. History remembers her not for power, but for courage in the face of inevitability. She was just a woman, in a time when speaking your mind could cost you everything. Askew dared to challenge the most powerful authority in England, and paid the ultimate price. Born in 1521, Askew was bold, intelligent, and fiercely devout. She refused to follow the Catholic Church blindly. She read the Bible, questioned its teachings, and spread Protestant ideas. Her faith would become her death sentence. In 1546, during King Henry V's reign, Anne was arrested for heresy. The charges? Teaching Protestant beliefs, criticizing the established church. She was interrogated repeatedly, pressed to name other Protestants, but she refused. Every refusal, every question she didn't answer, tightened the noose around her neck. Askew's trial was short and ruthless. The court of the Tower of London declared her guilty of heresy. No real defense, no sympathy. Justice, in her case, was a tool of power. Anne was sent to the stake at Smithfield in London. Unlike many common criminals, she was tied carefully, allowed to kneel, and gave her final prayers. The fire was lit, and the smoke rose high into the gray sky. Even as the flames consumed the stake, Anne's courage burned brighter in history. She was just 25, a woman who dared to question authority. Her words, her faith, her defiance would echo for centuries. Anne Askew, martyred for her beliefs, remembered for her bravery. She was only 19 years old, a teenage peasant girl who claimed she heard the voice of God and led France to victory in battle. Her name was Joan of Arc. In 1430, she was captured by Burgundian forces and handed over to the English. But instead of treating her like a prisoner of war, they charged her with heresy. The accusation? That she claimed divine visions, that she dressed in men's armor, that she dared to say God chose her. Her trial began in Rouen in 1431 under an ecclesiastical court led by Bishop Pierre Cauchon. But this was no ordinary trial. She was denied independent legal counsel, interrogated repeatedly, pressured to confess. Dozens of theologians questioned her. They twisted her words. They tried to trap her in contradictions. At one point, exhausted and threatened with execution, she signed a document agreeing to recant her visions. But days later, she withdrew her confession. That sealed her fate. On May 30th, 1431, Joan was taken to the marketplace in Rouen. She asked for a cross. She forgave her enemies. And then she was tied to a wooden stake. The fire was lit. The smoke rose. And at just 19 years old, Joan of Arc was executed for heresy. 25 years later, the church reopened her case. The verdict? The trial had been corrupt. Her conviction was overturned. And centuries later, she was declared a saint. From condemned heretic to national hero, one trial, one fire, a legacy that refused to burn. She was a queen, crowned in gold, adored by a king, and just 3 years later accused of betrayal. On May 19, 1536, England watched a queen kneel and lose her head. This is the fall of Anne Boleyn. Anne wasn't born royal. She was intelligent, bold, and impossible to ignore. King Henry VIII fell deeply obsessed with her. So obsessed, he broke from the Catholic Church, created the Church of England, and made Anne his queen. But when she failed to give him a male heir, everything changed. The charges and trial. In May 1536, Anne was arrested, taken to the Tower of London. The charges? Adultery, incest with her own brother, and high treason against the king. 5 men were accused alongside her. Historians widely believe the charges were fabricated, a political move to remove her. Her trial lasted just days. A hand-picked court, no real defense, no real chance. The verdict? Guilty. Punishment? Death. Execution scene. Unlike common traitors, Anne was granted a merciful execution. A skilled French swordsman was brought in. On the morning of May 19th, she wore gray, calm, composed. She knelt, blindfolded. The swordsman distracted her, and with the single swift strike, it was over. No scream, no dramatic last words, just silence, and the fall of a queen. History would later question her guilt, but on that day, power decided the truth.